Hey, so you're a writer, a comedian, TV host, radio host.
For now.
For now.
That's why I do so many jobs, because you're just waiting each morning to get an email saying, oh, we're not going to need you to do that one anymore. So currently I'm doing all those things, but it's not inconceivable that in like a month, you know, they start to peel away. Discovery might replace me with a shark.
Why do you feel that way? What's happened in your life?
I've always felt that anyone in the media should be ready to lose their job at any moment and not hold a grudge. You know, radio and TV in particular, it's just I think getting into the industry that your time is limited and that you might be flavour of the month for a while, and when it happens, I think you just got to go, let's go do something else. It's happened to me before. So while everything's going well, I don't want to give you the wrong impression. We're not in discussions or anything here at RNZ, but I think you should take it easy come, easy go.
Interesting.
So that's why I do it all now, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So I don't turn down much, because there's only a limited time where people are going to want you to do anything.
Yeah, because I was thinking about everything you did and do, and you took on the Music Awards this year. And I thought, do you say no to anything? But now I understand.
Yeah, I do say no to a lot, actually, particularly live stuff. When I started doing radio and TV at the same time, I thought, man, oh man, I'm really going to have to carve out some time for my family. So I'm like, we're doing this interview at 10 in the morning, but I don't really do anything before 10. And weekends are mostly all to us, and generally after TV as well. So yeah, I do less live stuff, less hosting, but someone asks you to host the Music Awards, you've got to say yes. And that, by the way, goes to my other philosophy, which is that if you're a little bit scared about doing something, you say yes, and then you just work out how to make it happen. Which is, a lot of the things that I've kind of been proudest of doing has been stuff where I wasn't quite sure I was up to it, but you just say yes, and then the fear of failure or letting people down is kind of what drives you to do it.
I was reading your bio, and a lot of the way your career has gone, that trajectory, has seemed very serendipitous. Has it felt that way for you?
That's so funny, eh? Like, I heard quite recently that, when someone asks you how you got to where you are, there's no point in telling them, because that pathway has already disappeared. And I've been talking to the kids a lot as well, we were talking about bullying this week, and I said, yeah, I got a bit bullied at school. Just for a really short time, and so my mum moved me to a different school, and through that school I made friends with the guy, and his little brother was going out with a girl, and the girl is now your mum, so if I hadn't been bullied, I wouldn't have ended up at that school, and I wouldn't have met the wife that I did, and you wouldn't have been born, so, and that's just a small example of how, it's a cliche to say that adversity, leads to success in unexpected places, but I do think a lot of that stuff you can't plan, right? You just, I guess you've got to turn up. If you don't turn up, nothing happens for you, and if you do, it will happen, but not always in the pathway you expect.
Because what I was leading into when I started...
Got interrupted by me.
was about how you had trained to become a lawyer, and then your career pathway changed because you decided you were going to be a funny guy.
Stand up.
Yeah. So what compelled you to do that?
Well, I was always in school plays and that sort of thing, so I think, like any kid who does drama dreams of kind of like a showbiz life, and so I suppose the stand-up has always been a way of just getting an audience pretty quickly. You don't have to audition, and you don't have to be chosen by anyone. You don't have to be hired. You just stand up on stage, and if you're any good, then it works for you. And so once I had a little bit of success doing that, I thought, well, maybe this is a pathway that's open to me. It wasn't that I was really disillusioned by the idea of a legal career, but I just thought, well, if I can give this a go, I will. I was doing student radio at the same time, so there was this little patchwork, a student TV station I was working on, so a little patchwork of things I was doing, and I just thought, well, I'll do this for as long as I can, and then I can maybe go back to law. That was 25 years ago.
Do you think is that ever a consideration?
No, I don't think so, but I do feel like I use the law degree from time to time, particularly here at RNZ. There's often be times where you've got to scan quite a huge document and work out what the key sort of issue is and unpack it a little. And I do feel like the legal training and the 5-figure student loan did contribute to that in some way.
I mean, listening to you talking about, being bullied as a child, but also being creative and drama and that sort of thing. Are you who you wanted to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I don't want to overplay the bullying, by the way. It was just a small incident. But, yeah, I mean, my yearbook says the boy most likely to be Prime Minister. I don't think that's probably on the cards, but I was always getting up in front of the school and doing speeches or doing funny sketches or lip syncing to Duran Duran. So, yeah, it was probably if you'd asked me then, it was a brief period I wanted to be a professional wrestler, but apart from that, probably showbiz was the goal.
What happened with the wrestling?
I don't know. Like, there was 2 years where I was 100% certain I was going to be a professional wrestler.
Did you do the training and the stunts and all that?
No, sir.
Oh, just in your head?
In my head, yeah.
Well, that's
nothing.
a start.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were just sure.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
How far in your mind did you get?
There wasn't much of a pro wrestling circuit in New Zealand.
No, that's true.
And the WWF was big in the US, but I don't think they were looking for 13-year-olds.
Probably not, no. For all the roles that you're currently doing, how do they bleed into each other or how do they feed into each other?
Yeah, I feel like they feed into each other less than you would think.
Right.
I'm quite compartmentalised with the things I do. I feel like restaurant reviewing has nothing to do with radio or TV. In fact, it's quite nice that when I sit down and write 800 words on a restaurant, I could be doing that whether or not, I was on TV or radio. In fact, I had started doing it when I wasn't on either. So that's, and then radio and TV, sometimes we'll cover the same story on both, but not often. And when we do, it doesn't feel weird. Maybe a couple of times a year, 3 or 4 times a year, I'll interview the same person on the radio and then interview them again on TV that night. But different audiences, I think, and different expectations of what people are enjoying. Even if I've got the same person listening in the daytime who is watching at night, I think they get that in the afternoon it's company and conversation and curiosity and often long form. In the evening, it's just something to have on to amuse your eyeballs for half an hour, a bit of candy. Not to denigrate it, but it feels very different. I feel like not a different person, but it feels like definitely like a different job.
So you feel like you're engaging different parts of your brain when you're doing all these different things?
Yeah. A lot of broadcasting is the kind of stuff you don't see, the hopefully making it look easy, and I think probably that part of my brain is working in both radio and TV. What's happening next? This guest's going off the rails a bit. Do I have to rein them in? We're going to wrap them up. We're short of time. It's a heartfelt moment. We're doing something funny. I'm about to have to make a turn into something more serious. So that's the same job. Maybe the presentation is quite different.
You mentioned your food writing not having much crossover to TV or radio, but I remember you likening cooking a risotto to raising your children.
Right. Just adding a little liquid from time to time, only giving them as much as they can absorb.
Something like that.
I don't recall the metaphor, yeah.
But I was wondering what other food metaphors you might have for life or broadcasting.
Okay. Not something I've put any thought into, Leilani.
That's fine.
I would say like cooking is my absolute favourite way to relax and unwind. Like I love sometimes like on the weekend I'll say to my wife, I'm thinking about making this such and such, some complex slow cook stew, and she'll say, don't you want us to make something easy? I'm like, no, that's the point. The hardness is the point.
I know that you don't bring this up unless it's asked of you, but you did mention failure and moving on quickly from that. You talked about leaving 7 Sharp feeling humiliated and bitter, but that those feelings didn't last long. And so I'd like some insight as to how you do that. How does one move on from those sorts of feelings?
Yeah. Well, it probably goes back to what we were talking about earlier about not feeling entitled to anything, you know. I know people who lost radio jobs 15 years ago who will still bring it up every time you meet them and cling on to it. I think that's pointless, and I think so partly it's a philosophical approach, as to say easy come, easy go. I think the most successful people are optimists, you know, and so I try to be like that. I don't try and linger on anything, and if I find myself doing it, I just kind of think, well, what's the next thing? So yeah, that's not a step-by-step guide, but I always look positively and don't really allow myself to soak in disappointment.
Yeah.
Life's sort of too busy as well.
Right.
You know, when you've got a beautiful family and other work on, it's really like life's too busy to mope.
You said easy come, easy go, but it's hard, right? Or there's hard work behind what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I often think when you get a big shot at something, 7 Sharp or the project or RNZ, it's not really what you've done in that moment to get the job. It's kind of, you bring your whole lifetime with you. So, yeah, easy come, yeah, it often does, as you described it, feel like serendipity really in the moment. You don't work and work and work and work in that moment to get that job. You just kind of try and do the right thing and make the right decisions, and then when something comes up, you're either the right person for you or you're not.
You talked to Robbie Williams yesterday.
Yeah.
What's your favourite interview of all time?
Oh man, it was really special to get to interview Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
And the only way to do it was to come in at 10 o'clock at night here at RNZ.
Wow.
And I had a number. It turned out to be the number for his flat.
Amazing.
And yeah, I mean, he's a comedy hero of mine, and because it's radio, you get some decent time, you know, to form a connection with him, which you don't often on TV. Otherwise, to be honest, and I don't know if this is part of that easy come, easy go philosophy, but like, I completely forget almost everything about both shows the next day. Like, I couldn't tell you what was on my radio show yesterday. I feel like Catherine Ryan is famous for remembering every single thing that every interviewer has ever said to her. And I'm not like that. Like, I can't remember people from last week. When I'm interviewing them, I'm like 100% there with them.
Yep.
Like, I'm in love with them when I'm talking to them.
Yep.
And then when the show's over, it's just what's next.
Yep.
So that's a long way of saying I can't remember.
And so can you remember a disastrous interview, or does that just go out the head as well?
No, you remember those ones.
Yeah, right. So.
John Stevens, you know, he's a pop singer who was part of INXS for a while. That wasn't my fault. My radio co-host wound him up. It's usually musicians, weirdly. And like, I really respect musicians and what they do, because I can't do it. But usually when it goes wrong, it's because you've said something in a question, or the way you've asked a question, or you've made some assumption that they don't like, and they'll get a little kind of like a little injury. And they won't necessarily take it out on you then, but then you'll just start to feel the kind of the angst build up, and it starts going south. You can see it in their face. They smile, but when they smile, the rest of their face is really tense, and their eyes are burning with rage and hatred.
What do you do in that situation?
I usually try and
in the bush, yeah?
I always try and over flatter them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can pull them back, but often it's a lost cause.